Hi guys, so we are almost at the end of this TexturingXYZ tutorial, and then the next step that we want to see together is how to work on the specular roughness. Clear code specular roughness instead, and not the specular roughness in itself. So just something to keep in mind is that basically the spec roughness, using a texture to control the spec roughness is something that is up to an artistic decision. So it's not something that is that should happen at the level of the material itself in the way that it's not physically correct to do that. So you just want to create a map that will fake the wetness of the surface. So that's what you want to do here. So what we will do is to start opening the node graph again, and I will show you how to do that. And again, you want to make sure that everything is controlled with masks, so it can be replicated into the material, and then later you will just have to recreate these masks. So I want to use the node properties, and I also want to dive into the node graph. So where is the node graph? It should be here. Okay, then we just dock it here, open it to become a bit larger, and let's show this material right away. Okay, so this is what we had last time for the coat weight, which is basically what we'll do again for this guy. So what we want to do is to have a map that is a bit similar to this one. I will just do a little bit of cleaning. So let's put all of that on the backdrop like this. Just simply rename that as my coat W for coat weight. Name it like this. Okay, and what I want to do here is to put this into a group. So let's group everything, so everything is becoming a little bit cleaner here. I will just rename this guy into coat W GRP, and again recreate another backdrop, so everything is become a bit clearer into my main node graph, and this backdrop will have the same name. Can pick another color to make it more understandable. This. Okay, and I will rename the input that I have into this current node. So you will see that later something that we'll do is to replace the connection using the surface isolation mask as geochannel and not as inputs. What we want to keep as input though is the manual control that we are using. For example, the manual the manual layers that we have in the primary colors, because we have manual layers that are here. For example, we have this layer that is here inside of this group, but it's a paintable information, and the paintable informations cannot make it into a material. So we'll have to extract that, and we have to create inputs. So they want to be here as inputs because they are live information. We may want to have to update them in real time into the viewport, instead of surface information, just like this ISO curvature. And this surface information is something that is unmovable. It's based on the surface, it's based on the sculpt. So if we do not have to update the sculpt, or if we do have to update the sculpt, we'll have to go in another software. We'll have to go in ZBrush, we'll have to go in Maya or whatever. Then we'll have to resculpt our subject, and we'll have to re-export and re-import this texture back in Mari. So those are informations again that are controlled, and that are controlled by another software. So that's why we do not need to update them every time. And that's why we'll also be able to convert that into a geometry channel instead of having that as a paintable input. Anyways, that's something that we'll see in the next chapter, where we'll speak about how to convert that into a proper material. What I want to do quickly is just to rename these inputs. So this is using, let's have a look at what it's using. This input one, or just input, is using the curvature. So let's rename things. ISO curvature underscore in. Okay, this mask is eyelid. Okay, so let's rename that into ISO underscore eyelid in. Mask 3 is using the lips, so should be ISO underscore lips in. This one is using the nose, ISO underscore nose in. And this one finally is using the Mari displacement, so I will just rename this into ISO underscore, or is it ISO? I think that's just mdisp in should suffice for that. Yep, let's have a look at the main node graph, and everything has been renamed properly. Okay, so let's see how to make the, whoops, so that's a bug in Mari. So basically when you have a GRP or every node that is selected and then you click on a backdrop, then the former node will still be selected, and when you will move this backdrop, you will still have the former selection that will move with it. So you just want to unselect things by default, and then you can select the other node graph. Okay, so I want to create the specular roughness map now. How to do that? So the first thing we want to do is to have a look at the material itself, and we want to use values into the clear coat. We want to use these values to show us where the quality of the skin, basically, to show us the main value we want to play with. For example, I want to see which value I will be able to use for the nose, and which value I will be able to use for the eyelids and for the rest of the skin. So what I can do is to get rid of this skin weight. So I just have my black information. I just have the spec that has been isolated, and I can get rid also of the specular. So in order to do that, I just want to select the spec color, sorry, the spec weight. I will just put the spec weight at 0. Okay, so I just have my clear code that is visible now. It's a little bit hard to see it at the moment. So what I can do is just get rid also of this clear coat weight. So I have just general information. Okay, so I have an overall value that is able to show me my spec weight, sorry, and I will make it a bit brighter so I can really see what is happening here. Okay, so if I want to play with the spec roughness now, let's say that I want to get a more shiny nose. What I will want to do is to make the nose with a lower value, so I think that 0.2 or 0.22 can work. And if I want, for example, to make it rougher, then I will want to use a value of 0.5 or something like that. So let's start by playing with the different areas, or let's start by creating the base for the spec roughness. So also something that will happen in the spec roughness, so in the wet layer, is that basically you will have the skin that will become a bit wetter where you have some ambient occlusion. So you want to use the ambient occlusion as your primary and main base for that. So let me do it. I will start with the ambient occlusion. So this is the ambient occlusion for my channel, for my clear coat roughness channel. So this is working on itself because the areas that are ambient occluded, are darker, which means that they will have a more shiny spec. So something that I may want to do is to use a brightness lookup to control it even more, and say that I want the spec to be even more wet into the occluded area, something like that. And I want to clump it. I do not want to have a value of 0, but I may want to have a minimal value of 0.1 or 0.2. and I can do it using this curve here. And the maximum roughness should not be 1 because it's way too rough. I may want to have a maximum roughness of 0.6 or 0.7. So I will use a curve like this one. And then again, I can contrast it even more using this curve editor. Okay. So this is my spec or coat or ambient occlusion. Okay, and this one will be my coat ambient occlusion, coat AO brightness lookup. So what I want to do now is to use is to say that I want a more wet spec on the nose. So how can I do that? So the way to do it is by using brightness and then using also the former masks that we had before. So I want to merge this guy. I think that I can use a merge no alpha instead. Okay, and on the overlay node I will use a brightness, and I will connect it like this, so it's not doing anything at the moment. But let's say that I want to get a more shiny spec just on the node, then I will just have to play with the brightness and make it darker. So the only thing I want to do now is to connect this nose channel directly to this as a mask for this. So let's drag and drop this nose and plug it as a mask. And that's how I will be able to control the spec roughness for the nose. So let's rename that into our coat our nose underscore BGT for brightness. And I will name that as well. Coat nose MRG. And I will simply copy and paste these informations so I can get gain access to the same way of controlling my spec roughness. So I want the lips to become a bit wetter, so I will do the same manipulation using this one and plug in this node into the base like this. Whoops. And this one, on this one I will use the lips instead of using, whoops. Let me have a look at what I have in this node. Okay, so I will use the lips instead of using the nose. And let's have a look at what this guy is doing. And I have the same way of controlling my spec roughness. So one last time, I also want to say that the eyelid will be a bit brighter. So I will duplicate that, recreate my connections. Use the eyelid as a mask. And now I have the eyelids that are a bit more wet. So this should be connected now to the spec R or to the coat roughness. Where is the coat roughness? This guy. Okay, let me have a look at this material now. It will take a bit of time to compute the information that we just input into the coat roughness. And because I have nothing that is connected into the, no, it's working actually, sorry. So I just want to activate again my sRGB into the viewport so I can really see how the spec is looking. And this is looking how I want. So in order to control that a bit more, so things are definitely too dark into my viewport. So I can make it to be a bit more visible here. But yeah, I have a spec that is a bit rougher on the overall head, and I have a spec that is a bit wetter on into the occluded and into the area where I have my masks. So what I can do here as well, so let's rename things a bit more. So this is the coat roughness for the, I think it was for the lips. Lips, okay, and this one is for the nose. Sorry, not for the nose, it's for the eyelid, I think. Eyelids. Eyelids MRG, okay, and if I want, for example, let's say that I think that the lips are, or the nose is definitely too wet. So the only thing I will have to do to control that is to go onto the coat or nose BGT node, and I will just be able to make it brighter. So I will get less of a wet effect, and I will be able to do it also on the other nodes. So the lips is probably a bit too wet. So again, I can play with this value to make it to become a bit brighter and less wet. Same for the eyelid. Crank this value up a bit more. And that's how it's working. So this map is pretty simple. It doesn't have like a lot of control on it, and it's not showing a lot of definition. But if you want to gain even more definition, what you can do then is to use the Mari displacement as an additional layer. So this is my Mari displacement. So this one here, and I may want to say that the inside of the skin pores will be a bit more wet, because that's where the oiliness is coming from. That's when you have a dot on the skin, is to make sure that the oiliness can spur out of these dots. So it's basically an entry or an exit point for the wetness of the skin. And the outside of the skin pores may want to be a little bit more rough. So what I can do is just to simply use this map and merge it as an overlay on what I had before. So we'll use a merge node to do that. This one will be my, let's rename things, coat RM disp MRG. I want to kill the color space enable management. Use this brightness lookup. Sorry, not the brightness lookup, this Mari displacement node, and merge it here. And between that and between the last node, what I may want to do is to use also, is it working? Oh, sorry. In the mode here, I want to go in contrast and put that into overlay. So it's adding this additional definition. So what I may want to do as well is to use a brightness lookup in order to control the darkness of some of the areas. So this one will become my coat RM disp BLU. And I may want, for example, to make sure that the inside of the skin pores is a little bit more wet or is a little bit darker, and the outside is becoming a little bit more rougher. Again, this is an artistic way of controlling your map, so this may not be necessary at all, but you may want to use that, and you may want to have this additional control directly on your shader, so you can play with it in the look dev. And that's where we are. That's what we have so far. So one last thing that I will do within this chapter is to clean this GRP and creating the additional control. Did I do that here? Not yet. Okay. So I will keep that, actually I will keep that for the next video, so I will be able to show you on all the different nodes how to start doing the cleanings, how to start doing your GRP properly, and how to manage your GRP, and how to expose the nodes that you may want to have access to without having to dive again into those GRPs. So this is it for this video, guys. See you in the last chapter of this tutorial.